odd turn of events, I found myself in Poland with nothing better to do but visit their latest and greatest roller coaster, Zadra. As you probably know, this is a Rocky Mountain construction hybrid coaster, known for being the first ground up of its kind and both the tallest and fastest of its kind that is hybrid coaster. Going in, I had extremely high hopes for this coaster, and it is safe to say that after 11 rides in one day, I was not disappointed in the least because this coaster is truly incredible. I've ridden my fair share of RMCs, I think just under 10 now, and Zadra is easily one of the best, if not one of the more unique ones I have ridden. Before we get to the actual ride experience, I wanted to talk about the coaster's presentation and the queue. Zadra comes with a new themed area centered around medieval architecture and dragons. Zadra translates as Splinter in English from Polish and fits as a really nice centerpiece for this really awesome area. It comes with two other coasters, however, it is by far the largest attraction in this little dragon area. The only qualm I have with Zadra is actually the queue line. I visited the park on a super dead day, and from the very entrance to the actual station, with filming and taking pictures, was about a 10-minute walk. I understand why the park does this, and I appreciate the lack of switchbacks and the really wide path, but on an empty day it got pretty annoying. Not because there's a long queue, walking is fine, but they have to fill every single train to its maximum capacity, and they don't let you stay in the station, so the entire operation of just getting onto the coaster was a little bit cumbersome, and I'm lucky that I got to do it 11 times. After my first few rides, I wasn't expecting to get over 5 just because of how long it took to get on the coaster. Anyhow, you'll get near the station, and though lockers are mandatory, they have a really nice system put in place. It's pretty cheap, around $2. Once in the station, you'll notice their interesting queue system. Zadra has been running one train, but, like I said, since the operators are required to fill every row, there are 3 sections that you can queue up for. One for very front row, so that obviously moves the slowest, one for the rest of the train, and then one single rider line. It's the same system as Hyperion. It's similar to the system on Skyrush at Hershey Park. It works well. If you sit in the front, they require that you wear goggles. They are supplied by the park. It is mandatory for the 3 biggest coasters at the park, Hyperion, Zadra, and Formula. I only rode the front 3 times because despite it providing a really nice experience, the back is where it is at in terms of intensity and airtime strength. You'll start off the ride with a 90-degree turn out of the station and into the lift hill. If you've ridden Steel Vengeance or Twisted Timbers, you'll know that their lift hills are deafening. I found the Zadra chain lift to be relatively quiet compared to those 2 coasters. Soon enough, you'll hit this drop, and I have nothing but good things to say about this drop. It is my favorite drop on any RMC coaster, just barely edging out Steel Vengeance. And really, they're the same drop. The only difference is that Zadra plummets you into near-miss elements with the support structure, and there's a bit of space between the first element and the drop, a lot more than Steel Vengeance, which I like. But really, they're honestly just the same. Right after that, you'll hit a lateral hill. This is a super intense moment, one of my favorites on the ride, although there's no airtime on that bunny hop. I would say that the bunny hop after the Steel Vengeance drop has more actual airtime. The first element is actually my favorite on the ride, which is a steep spike that made me gray out half of my rides and leads to a twisted airtime moment. This compares to the Steel Vengeance outer bank in my opinion, and not only is it super intense, but the airtime that comes off the bank is extremely well sustained and very strong. It really is a 2-in-1 element. It's a really full package element. A transition will lead you into a 0G stall under the lift, and surprisingly, this was also one of my favorite elements on the ride. This provides a unique upside-down airtime sensation. It's a truly great element. Looking down at the supports under you provides a particularly funky feeling when you're riding the coaster. Next, the train will hit this twisted wave turn. I'm just going to call it a wave turn just to be simplistic. But it feels nothing like the wave turbs I've been on. It's super aggressive. The pop of airtime is stupidly strong. It's just a great element. After that, a large airtime hill will give you some nice positive, really great ejector, super well sustained. People were saying that this was going to be the dead moment of the ride. I actually thought it was going to be too, but no, it actually feels like a miniature version of the El Toro first hill. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't really come close in airtime strength, but I mean it's a very solid element. The second inversion's nice, might be my favorite inversion on the ride. Has some great near misses. It's a really disorienting moment. The double down is probably the weakest moment on the ride following that inversion. Has two solid pops of ejectors, just nothing super special. Right after that, RMC's first true S-turn has a really nice aggressive pace to it, really throws you around, almost feels like airtime. And the final inversion, though the weakest on the ride, provides a great conclusion to a great ride. So I just want to say that overall, the ride does not have any dead moments. I said that the double down was probably the weakest section of ride for me, but that is still a very strong element that compares to the best elements on a ride like, say, Wicked Cyclone or Twisted Colossus. Really, every element on this ride is a favorite element for me. And just going over my ride experience, I found myself saying, wow, that was a great element on pretty much every element. After my first ride on Zadra, I found myself saying that the ride was the perfect mix of Lightning Rod and Steel Vengeance. Has the aesthetic and stats of Steel Vengeance, but the intensity and airtime of Lightning Rod. The most important thing that I wanted to mention is simply how unique Zadra is. Like it or not, I personally feel like RMC is just becoming a bit formulaic. You know, the low to the ground pops of airtime and slow motion inversions really succeed on rides like Steel Vengeance and Hikuge, but have become a bit stale on rides like the Joker and Wicked Cyclone. All this to say, RMC outdates themselves very quickly, but Zadra takes RMC to a whole new level. Focuses on strong, sustained airtime and speed rather than a lot of pops of airtime and duration, which is why I love it so much. People say that this is similar to Goliath at Six Flags Great America. I'm sure it is. It's just I haven't had the chance to ride that, so I can't really speak truthfully there. But overall, this is just a great ride. My first two rides of the day were good. Solid, I think, would be the word I would use to describe. I think I rode like middle and then very back. But by the very end of the afternoon, the ride was hauling to a point where some of the elements were taken at a ridiculous pace. As someone who craves intensity, Zadra at 5 p.m. on a warm day was a truly wild experience. Like I mentioned, 11 rides gave me a nice feel for the coaster, but my last 5 or so rides were way better than my first few. Essentially, the coaster cracked my top 10 in the morning, but by the afternoon, it jumped almost my entire top 10. The ride is probably in my top 4 now. I usually find a downside with every coaster I ride, but Zadra does not have a dead moment. Its weakest moment is a double down, and even that is better than most of the elements on a ride like Wicked Cyclone. That's how good this coaster is. I think the burning question that a lot of people will have, and the burning question I had, is whether or not Zadra is the Steel Vengeance killer, the ride to top it all. Honestly, I don't think it is. I don't think it would be in most people's eyes, but for me, they edge each other out. They are literally equal in my rankings. And I know that's kind of corny and cheesy, just to not pick favorites, but this is literally one of the only instances where I have had two rides like literally equal. It happened with Intimidator 305 and Lightning Rod, and it's happening again now. I just cannot pick between them because Zadra it focuses on intensity, airtime. Steel Vengeance, I feel like, is more pacing and pops of airtime and length, really just more quantity, whereas Zadra is more quality. I don't know. I've ridden Zadra so much more than Steel Vengeance, more than double, so I feel like maybe Zadra would just jump that one spot simply because I've had more experience with it. Again, I don't really know. For a final grade, I will be giving Zadra the perfect A+ score. I've only given this score to I think around 4 or 5 coasters, so it's nice to bring another coaster into my elite category. I hope you really enjoyed this review. Be sure to like, comment, and maybe even subscribe. This is Coaster Cupcake. I'll catch you all next time. Bye, guys.